What if the world doesn't need tourists anymore, but residents? For decades, we were told the same story. Travel is temporary, living abroad is expensive, and starting over in another country is something only the wealthy can afford. That belief shaped how most of us saw the world: visit if you can, but stay where you are. But that story is quietly breaking. Right now, entire villages are disappearing. Schools are closing. Local shops are shutting their doors. Across the globe, governments are facing a problem they can't solve with tourism alone. They don't need more short-term visitors taking photos and leaving. They need people who are willing to stay, work, raise families, and keep communities alive. That's why something remarkable is happening. Countries are offering cash incentives. Some are giving away homes or land. Others are cutting taxes or covering part of your living costs. In a few places, they're even providing monthly income, not as charity, but as a trade. Your presence in exchange for their survival. This is not a commercial. It's not a fantasy lifestyle pitch, and it's definitely not free money with no strings attached. Every offer comes with conditions, commitments, and real trade-offs that most videos never mention. In this video, we're exploring 5 countries that are actively helping people relocate. Places where the cost of living is still manageable, where life moves slower, and where your decision to move actually matters. But stay with me until the end, because one of these countries will literally give you land and a monthly income only if you promise to stay. And the real question isn't whether these offers are real. It's whether the life that comes with them is something you'd actually want. Let's begin. Country 5. Estonia. Getting paid indirectly through a digital ecosystem. Estonia isn't trying to attract as many people as possible. This country doesn't need a large population. What it needs are people who create value. People who can work remotely, build businesses, and generate global income without being tied to a physical office or a specific city. In Estonia's way of thinking, quantity matters far less than quality. That's why they don't hand you cash the moment you arrive. Instead, Estonia has built a digital ecosystem that, if you know how to use it, can pay you in a much more sustainable way. Through e-residency, you can open a company, sign contracts, manage finances, and run a business entirely online, no matter where you are in the world. The tax system is simple, transparent, and especially friendly to startups. Profits that are reinvested aren't taxed, something very few countries are willing to offer. When it comes to living costs, Estonia isn't the cheapest place in Europe, but it's still manageable. On average, you can live on around $1,200 to $1,500 per month if you stay outside the city center. It's not luxurious and it's not flashy, but it's stable enough to let you focus on work and build something long-term. Internet speeds are fast, digital services are seamless, and almost all government paperwork can be handled with just a few clicks. Life in Estonia is quiet, very quiet. The streets aren't noisy and people aren't in a rush. Technology is everywhere, yet daily life feels minimal and restrained. And yes, it's cold here, both in terms of weather and social interaction. It's not the easiest place to integrate socially. But if you value personal space, independence, and don't need constant surface-level socializing, Estonia can feel surprisingly comfortable. So, who is Estonia for? It's for remote workers who don't want to be tied to one country. For founders looking to build global businesses without being suffocated by bureaucracy or complex taxes. And for people who place personal freedom, privacy, and control over their own lives above everything else. Estonia doesn't promise a glamorous lifestyle. It doesn't try to appeal to everyone. But if you're looking for a place that doesn't pay you for simply being there, only for the value you create, Estonia is quietly opening its doors. Country 4. Italy. cash and homes to save dying towns. In Italy, there are towns where the problem isn't a lack of tourists, it's a lack of people who stay. The population is aging fast. Young people leave their hometowns to find work in big cities or move abroad. Streets that were once full of life are now silent. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of houses sit abandoned, locked for years, not because they're ugly, but because there's simply no one left to live in them. Instead of letting these towns slowly disappear, Italy chose a different approach. They don't ask you to visit. They invite you to live. Some local governments offer between $20,000 and $40,000 to people willing to relocate. In many places, homes are sold for a symbolic price of just €1. And it doesn't stop there. Local authorities even help cover renovation costs so these old houses can be brought back to life. It sounds too good to be true. But in Italy, this isn't a marketing campaign. It's survival. These towns don't need investors. They need neighbors. They need children in schools, people sitting in cafes in the morning, and lights turning back on in houses that have been dark for too long. When it comes to living costs, life in small Italian towns is far cheaper than in Rome or Milan. On average, you can live on around $900 to $1,200 a month. Fresh food, local wine, and reasonable daily expenses. Not luxurious, but deeply satisfying in a very Italian way. The lifestyle here isn't about speed. It's about long meals that stretch for hours. Small communities where everyone knows your name. History that isn't something you visit, it's something you live inside. You don't live next to heritage, you live within it. Of course, nothing is truly free. The conditions are clear. You must renovate the house. You must actually live there, not buy it for speculation or short-term rentals. Local governments want commitment, not quick profit. Italy doesn't pay you to come and try. It opens its doors only to those willing to belong. And if you've ever thought about a slower, deeper life, one where you're not just passing through, but becoming part of a place, then Italy is quietly waiting. Country. 3. South Korea, getting paid to have children and settle in rural areas. South Korea is facing a crisis that money and technology alone can't easily fix. It has the lowest birth rate in the world. Rural villages are steadily emptying out. Schools are closing because there are no longer enough children. Areas that once formed the backbone of Korean society are quietly disappearing year by year. To reverse this, South Korea is doing something that would have seemed unthinkable not long ago. It's no longer just encouraging families to have children with words, it's paying them. Many local governments offer monthly cash subsidies to families who move to areas outside Seoul. On top of that, there's housing support, education assistance for children, and generous birth bonuses that can last for years. The goal is simple and very clear: bring life back to places that are being left behind. When it comes to living costs, South Korea becomes far more affordable once you step away from Seoul and the major cities. With about $800 to $1,200 a month, you can live a fairly stable life in smaller towns or satellite cities. Housing is cheaper, food is often subsidized, and healthcare and education benefit from strong government support. Life in these areas reflects a more traditional side of Korea. Safety is almost absolute. Infrastructure is reliable, public transportation works efficiently, and public services run smoothly. Everything follows a clear order. The culture of discipline makes daily life predictable, stable, and far less chaotic than in many other parts of the world. But this path isn't for everyone. The trade-off is social pressure. Expectations from the community are high. You're not just an individual living independently, you're expected to become part of a collective. Participating in local activities, following social norms, and adapting to Korean approaches to work, education, and child rearing are often unavoidable. South Korea isn't paying for unlimited personal freedom. It's paying for commitment. For people willing to build families, stay long-term, and become part of communities that are struggling to survive. Country. 2. Portugal. Incentives to live outside major cities. Portugal doesn't lack people. It lacks people in the right places. For years, population and economic opportunity have been concentrated in Lisbon and Porto, while inland regions have slowly declined. Small towns are losing young residents. Schools have fewer students and local businesses struggle to survive. At some point, the government realized that without bringing people back, entire regions would quietly fade away. That's why Portugal began encouraging a different path. Instead of pushing more people into big cities, it started supporting those willing to live beyond them. In some areas, grants are offered to people who relocate to low-population regions. Alongside this are tax incentives for expats and remote workers, people who earn income from elsewhere but choose to live and spend locally. This isn't money for short stays, it's support for building a stable long-term life. When it comes to cost of living, Portugal becomes far more comfortable once you leave Lisbon and Porto. On average, about $1,200 to $1,500 per month is enough for a good quality of life. Fresh, affordable food is easy to find. Healthcare is well regarded and relatively inexpensive. You don't need a high income to live well, just a steady one. Lifestyle is what keeps many people here. The ocean is never far away. Sunshine is abundant throughout the year. Life moves at a slower pace without constant pressure. Morning coffee, afternoon walks, quiet evenings. The international community in smaller towns isn't large, but it's stable and welcoming enough to feel connected without the chaos of big cities. Of course, Portugal has clear conditions. You must register legal residency. You must prove sufficient income to support yourself. There's no free money for people who only want to test the waters. These incentives are designed for those who are serious people who intend to live there, stay there, and contribute to the places they choose. Portugal isn't paying you to escape your old life. It's helping you build a new one, slower, lighter, and more sustainable in places where there's still sun, still sea, and still room to breathe. Country. 1. Japan. Getting paid to stay in rural Japan. Japan is aging faster than almost any other developed nation. In many rural areas, young people left long ago. Schools have closed. Clinics see fewer patients. Villages that were once full of life now have only a handful of homes with lights on at night. In some places, there are more empty houses than people. Not because the homes have lost their value, but because there's no one left to live in them. To stop this decline, Japan chose a very different approach. It isn't trying to pull more people into Tokyo. It's paying people to leave Tokyo. Local governments offer relocation subsidies for those willing to move to rural areas, along with abandoned homes that can be purchased for very little, or, in some cases, almost nothing at all. On top of that, there's support for daily living costs and renovation assistance to help newcomers settle in during their first months. When it comes to cost of living, rural Japan is far more affordable than most people expect. With about $700 to $1,000 per month, you can live quite comfortably in areas far from major cities. Utilities are cheaper. Food costs are lower. There are fewer hidden expenses that come with city life. Life becomes simpler, clearer, and far less financially stressful. So what does daily life actually look like? Mornings are quiet. No traffic horns, no crowds. You hear the wind birds and the sound of a local shop opening its doors. Communities are small. Life moves slowly, and everyone knows who you are. It's far from Tokyo, very far. But in exchange, it feels real in a way many people haven't experienced in years. Of course, Japan doesn't hide the downsides. The language barrier is real. Loneliness is real. Traditional job opportunities are limited unless you work remotely or have skills that match local needs. This isn't a place to try and see. It's for people willing to trade convenience for calm. Japan is willing to pay those who stay, but it doesn't promise an easy life. And what's striking is this: Japan isn't the only country struggling to keep its villages alive. There's no right answer here, and there's no wrong one either. This isn't really about which country is better or worse. It's about a world that is quietly changing in ways most of us don't stop to notice. If countries are paying people to stay, what does that say about the future of cities? For decades, movement was driven by ambition, bigger skylines, more opportunity, faster lives. Cities were the destination. Everything else was left behind. But today, relocation isn't about chasing a dream anymore. It's about survival, about rebuilding community, about finding meaning in places that still need people, not just visitors who come and go. Some people will choose stability. Others will choose silence. Some will stay exactly where they are. And some will realize that starting over doesn't always mean going somewhere bigger or louder. Sometimes it means going somewhere quieter. So if you could reset your life somewhere slower, somewhere simpler, somewhere that actually wants you there, which country would you choose?